Hello, I'm Ra, and in this video I will be discussing each of the four Vault Hunters, including their traits, action skills, and their skill trees, to help you determine which Vault Hunter you should choose when Borderlands 4 launches. One thing to note is that two more Vault Hunters will be releasing after Borderlands 4 is out, and they will most likely be similar to those introduced in both Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel. Let's begin. First off, there's Vex, the residential siren being introduced in this installment, who focuses on the occult, summoning scythe-wielding and gun-blazing familiars, sprouting wings and shooting elemental balls, and bringing a feline familiar to rip and tear into bandits' chest cavities. Vex's trait allows her to change her action skill's elemental affinities simply by swapping the weapon's damage type in her hand. For example, using a Malawan weapon, you can have both cryo and radiation skill damage by simply swapping between the two modes on your weapon. Vex's first skill is Dead Ringer, a channeled skill which allows her to summon up to 3 melee or gun damage familiars that fight by her side by hitting left or right click. Her second skill is Incarnate, which upon activating releases an elemental explosion and fully restores her health, unlocking Eldritch Blast, which releases elemental orbs from her left hand. This ability can be disabled, partially refunding skill cooldown. Her final and most cuddly action skill is Face Familiar. Trouble takes the form of a furry friend who, when killed, will simply respawn at your side. Recasting your action skill will teleport Trouble to your cursor location, turning into a badass and receiving several buffs for a duration. Aside from a plethora of minion buffs, some notable skills include Curse Blade, which is a debuff applied to enemies after meleeing them that procs additional kinetic damage whenever dealing gun damage, as well as the skill Extra Cursed, which now allows Dead Ringer melee minions to proc curses. There is also Blood Sacrifice, which activates all of Vex's kill skills when one of her minions dies. There's also Grave Power, a skill that increases the maximum stacks of kill skills, reminding me heavily of Zane. Next up is Rafa, a TDR soldier granted a second life due to his exoskeleton, providing him the ability to construct a selection of weapons, including a handheld energy cannon, shoulder-mounted miniguns, and arc blades protruding from his arms, making him destructively diverse. Rafa's trait is titled Overdrive, activating during his action skill and persisting for a few seconds after his action skill ends. Overdrive takes the form of a buff, providing both movement speed and increased damage from all sources. His first action skill is Apophis Lance, an arm cannon that charges up and releases shock ordnance damage projectiles. Press the action skill to release a small piercing orb and consume a charge, or hold down to charge up a larger blast with more projectile damage, size, and speed, although it costs more charges. His second action skill takes the form of two over-the-shoulder cannons that automatically fire towards enemies you are looking at. These cannons can be ended early to refund unused cooldown. Rafa's final action skill includes two arc knives, protruding blades from his arms that deal melee damage and apply a stacking debuff that further increases melee damage. Rafa can perform a normal melee attack, melee dash attack, or a blade fury that essentially turns him into a Beyblade. Rafa seems to have a focus on movement speed and has multiple skills enabling him to spec into both melee and gun builds while also maintaining his overdrive to provide him other buffs such as damage reduction or even critical hit chance. Both first impressions, a skill that grants bonus damage on the first shot from a mag, and metal management, a skill that provides no ammo consumption on action skill activation, can be combined to support low magazine size guns. Or Rafa can benefit from Dial In, a skill that provides critical hit chance to his melee attacks, and Saldar, a skill that gives melee crits lifesteal. Time for the warrior poet, Amon. This large and in-charge Vault Hunter is dubbed the Forge Knight, utilizing small drones to create an absurd amount of melee weapons and protective barriers. Amon by far has the most convoluted trait, allowing all of his action skills to have a hold-to-cast ability. For his first action skill, Onslaughter, Amon overloads and gains shield regen, incendiary damage, and move speed. Pressing the action skill again launches his fist forward, dealing incendiary damage and staggering small enemies. Holding the cast has him equip a forge hammer and slam the ground, creating a fiery crater. His second action skill, Scourge, equips a front-facing shield which absorbs all damage and applies a vengeance resource meter that builds up as damages absorbed. Reactivate the action skill to swing a whip that releases cryo waves that deal ordnance damage and drain vengeance. Holding the action skill places down a giant firewall that also absorbs enemy projectiles and amplifies ally projectiles. Amon's final action skill, Crucible, summons two axes, Fire and Ice, that can be thrown and picked up as well as prime enemies for explosions after being defeated. Holding down the action skill will combine both axes and release a spinning double-bladed weapon of destruction that will fly forward and come back like a boomerang. Amon has a high affinity for ordnance, otherwise known as launchers and grenades, melee damage, and survivability. His elemental affinities are shock, cryo, and fire. Amon has access to his own debuff, weakness, that can be applied by both ordnance and melee damage, which decreases the damage enemies deal and increases the damage they take after speccing into the gut punch skill. He can also become immune to all damage for a short duration after activating a Forge skill when speccing into Forged in Steel. Forged skill casts, however, have a long cooldown time. Finally, there's Harlowe, my most anticipated Vault Hunter that hails from the highly regarded Trant family, acting as both a disruptor and a team player. As a scientist, she utilizes gadgets such as a particle cannon, a siren-like phase lock, and a lantern that acts as an energy field. If you like crowd control, you will love Harlowe's trait Entanglement. Whenever Harlowe hits an enemy with any of her action skills, the unique status effect Entanglement will be applied to them. When attacking any enemy afflicted with Entanglement, a portion of all damage dealt will be shared between those affected with a base percentage of 7%. Her first action skill, Chroma Accelerator, which takes the form of an unstable energy pocket projectile that passes through enemies, dealing cryo damage, can be recast to detonate into a radioactive explosion. Enemies affected at any point will also be entangled. Harlow's second action skill is Zero Point, an ability similar to both Maya's Phase Lock and Amara's Phase Grasp that will place enemies in stasis. The skill can be recast to fling enemies towards your cursor, and any enemies affected by the skill will be entangled. If they are unable to enter stasis, the enemy will take damage instead. Last but not least, there is Flux Generator, a small lantern that emits a force field damaging enemies that enter inside with cryo damage and applying overshield to allies inside. Any enemy in its radius will become entangled, and you are able to press the action skill once more to pick it up and throw it multiple times. Harlowe has multiple skills that buff both her shield and overshields, as well as overall elemental damage with a focus on both cryo and radiation damage, which are two of my favorite elements. She even has some skills buffing her fire rate under certain conditions, making her an all-rounder. A skill like Ripple Effect allows entangled enemies to pass their entangled status onto others when being defeated, while the skill Momentum provides crit damage to all allies whenever Harlowe entangles an enemy. The passive skill titled Action at a Distance can spread status effects between all entangled enemies, which goes to show the area of effect and mobbing potential Harlowe has and is a major reason I am most likely going to play her at release. And that was a brief look into all four Vault Hunters being released on September 12th. I am hoping that the two DLC characters they release later on are of the same quality as these four, or even above and rival the complexity of Amon. Either way, I don't believe any of the base four will disappoint you. And if I was able to help you decide, let me know. If there's anything I need to improve upon with my videos going forward, let me know as well. I will also be posting some in-depth build guides for all four Vault Hunters before the release of the game. Subscribe if you would like to see those as well. Anyways, have a good day and see you all later.